Is there a big move coming for the Los Angeles Chargers? According to some NFL experts, they certainly seem to think that there is something that should be done. What's going on, Chargers fans? Chargers Now is presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Will Ortner. And in our cold open, we talked about how there's some NFL experts, I'm going to say, that believe the Chargers should move on from a certain player. That player, you might be wondering, well, it's Kimani Vidal. Now, of course, he had a stellar season last year coming in kind of relief work with all of the different injuries at that running back position that the Chargers suffered. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Vidal is someone who should be on this team this upcoming season. Now, I'm going to ask you before we kind of get into where we got into this report, where this report came from, why it could be a good reason to trade, why it could not be a good reason to trade him. But before we do, I do want to know what your opinion is, sight unseen, without any of my tampering. Should the Chargers trade Kimani Vidal? You let us know down below in the comment section. Is this a yes answer or is this a no answer? Because I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say. If you came to me, Will Ortner, I think right now I lean towards no. But if you went to Bleacher Report, they're definitely leaning towards yes. Now, this is an article where they went through 32 trade possibilities, essentially one for every single team. But I find it very interesting what Moe Moton had to say on why the Chargers should look into trading Kimani Vidal. As a fill-in for Omarion Hampton, Vidal made the most of his opportunities last season. He started in 10 out of 13 games, racking up a team-leading 643 yards on the ground. Despite Vidal's contributions in the previous campaign, the Chargers signed Keaton Mitchell under new offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel, who favors speed at the skill positions. If Mitchell claims the number 2 spot on the depth chart, he will be on the depth chart just with his ability to play on special teams. The question is he going to be the 2 or the 3? Los Angeles should shop Vidal, who could be more than serviceable for a team that needs running back help. Morton would go on to say that that trade should essentially be a day 3 pick, so an early to late day 3 pick, somewhere between rounds 4 and round 7 in the draft. Now, why would the Chargers potentially entertain this trade possibility? Well, it's very clear that Kimani Vidal has trade value. When you look at everything that he has been able to accomplish in the National Football League, it is clear that there are some teams that would at the very least make a phone call about grabbing him, especially as we get into training camp, which is getting underway here very soon, and players start getting injured. It's evident that the running back position is designed to really not have players in that spot for all too long. There's a reason why it's called the not for long league, and there's a reason why a lot of people have been looking at that running back position, especially those who are in charge, as more of a replacement type of position. Essentially, you have a player for 2 or 3 years, you have his replacement ready, and you keep moving forward. Kimani Vidal, he's going into his 3rd year in the league. He is someone that had a lot of success last year when he was not necessarily supposed to have success last year. Over 4 yards a carry, behind one of the worst offensive lines in the National Football League and one of the worst offensive schemes in the National Football League. For someone who isn't all that fast, having a long of 59 is pretty darn good. There are going to be teams that want Kimani Vidal right now, especially if they're looking at some of these older free agents and they're saying, I don't think there's any tread left on the tire. But there are also going to be teams that, as training camp gets underway, have more opportunities for a running back to come in and play for them. Because, look, unfortunately, injuries are a part of the game in the National Football League. And if there is a big-time injury, a team that might not have many better options at that running back position are going to look at a guy like Kimani Vidal and say, hey, that guy, we know he's a proven success in this league. He can come in and really help our team. Another reason why to trade him, he doesn't really fit the scheme. It was mentioned in that Bleacher Report article, but essentially, Kimani Vidal is not a burner. He's not a speedster. And that's clearly what the Chargers are looking for in their skill positions. We got so much more to discuss, but first, I need to let you know that today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. PrizePicks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. With the baseball season in full swing, there's no better time to cash in with our friends at PrizePicks. And I'll tell you this, the app is really easy to use. To qualify for a PrizePicks lineup, pick 2 to 6 players and select more or less on stat projections, including hits, home runs, strikeouts, and several others across all sports. One thing I love is the new social feeds feature, where you can share PrizePicks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app, at BigWill7774, to see all of my lineups. I have a lineup for the football action going on later on this year. Quentin Johnston, more on his receiving TDs. Kenyon Sadiq, more on his receiving TDs. Jackson Smith and Jigba, more on his receiving TDs. New user offer. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with PrizePicks. Clickable link to download the app is in the comments and description. We know right from the very get that Mike McDaniel has a clear scheme that he wants to run. Now, he's going to have different window dressing. He's going to have different bells and whistles. But essentially, McDaniel wants to do the same thing everywhere that he goes. He wants to get the ball quickly into space, into his playmakers' hands, and then let them do what they do best, make others miss. And if they don't make guys miss, well, then guess what? They won't be playing in Los Angeles for very long. He wants quick, speedy skill players at the wide receiver position, but also at that running back position. And that is something that is important for us not to forget. Now, when you look at a guy like Omarion Hampton, he might not fit that typical mold, that typical build. But to sit here and say that Omarion Hampton is not someone that can get away if need be would be wrong. But he's very elusive. He's a very strong running back, can run through arm tackles, and he has great vision, which works perfectly in the zone scheme. When you look at Keaton Mitchell is someone that just has insane, explosive breakaway ability. So if Keaton Mitchell gets any sliver of daylight, he's going to get gone. And if he does that, well, the Chargers are going to want to make sure that he's getting a lot of touches. Now, he hasn't stayed super healthy, but that's something for later on in the video. So when you look at that running back position group, yes, Kimani Vidal might be your third RB right now, but he could be on the outside looking in between those two, and the Chargers could say, hey, we'll keep a younger guy or we'll keep someone else. Maybe you keep Patterson around and trade Vidal because he actually has some trade value and he could help bring back some return. We know how much Joe Ortiz values the draft, and we know how much that Ortiz, the general manager for the Chargers, obviously really values the 2027 draft, as most NFL executives do, because they say it could be a historic draft. Which Chargers player is on the trading block? Let me know down below in our comments section. I'm not saying they're going to be traded today. I'm not saying they're going to be traded tomorrow. But is there a player that could end up being moved on from? When we look at the reasons why it might be smart to keep Kimani Vidal, I think it's important to remember that he is a grinder. This was not someone who came into the National Football League with a lot of love. This is not a player that was viewed as a can't-miss prospect, as someone who was going to instantly add into whatever NFL team either drafted or signed him as a UDFA. He's only been in the league for 2 years now, so 23 games, but in those games, he has certainly shown that he belongs. 3 touchdowns last year. Yay, the year before, he was viewed as a third option. He wasn't getting a ton of carries. Last year, when he got an opportunity to do so because of the injuries, he made the most of it. Over 4 yards a carry, that's moving at a pretty good clip. And while he might not have the explosive getaway ability that some of his counterparts do, to sit here and say that he's a bad running back in the National Football League would be incorrect. You want a lot of guys like that on your roster because you know if you give them an opportunity, they're going to make the most of it. Does that mean that they'll end up being a star? No. But how many stars are truly in the National Football League? Sometimes you want culture guys. You want guys that fit, guys that just show up every single day and do what they're supposed to do to make themselves better and to make the team better. Another reason why I think it would be important to keep him, the injury history in LA is horrific right now. You would think that this team was based in Palm Springs with the amount of ER and doctor visits that they have made. Yes, I'm making fun of the olds in Palm Springs. I apologize. I thought it was a funny joke. If you have an issue, take it up with producer Tom. In my opinion, Trading away a player right now for the Chargers is a mistake when you look at the injury history. You never know when a player is going to go down, whether it is a nagging injury, an injury that keeps a player out for a couple of days, or an injury that ends up keeping a player out for an entire season. Now, last year was historically poor for the Chargers with the amount of different injuries that they had to keep players. But what I do think is important is that you don't look at a single player right now as expendable, because I think that's what Bleacher Report is trying to say here. Kimani Vidal is expendable, and I just don't agree with that, especially with how many guys have been injured. I would not trade him away. I don't think the return is great enough to precipitate that type of move. I also think that when you look at that running back room, Omarion Hampton's been hurt in the NFL. Keaton Mitchell's been hurt in the NFL. Might not be a bad idea to keep around a couple of planned B's and C's in your running back room just in case that injury bug ends up rearing its ugly head again. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep you updated with all the latest Chargers news and rumors all year long. The long, dark offseason is very close to being over. That's right. Training camp's right around the corner. Don't miss any of the news or rumors or updates or analysis that we have here on the channel. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video. Can't wait to see you next time. Bolt up.